Alright, and here we go. I'm doing malware migrating to gaming consoles. This presentation is by Tyler Pogmeyer, and the presentation at DEF CON 18 was by On Ki Chen and Ha Dong Ji. Sort of an overview of the presentation I'm going to give. We've got how malware is infected into gaming consoles, malware on the Wii, mostly is what that's consisting of, consequences that follow, some defenses that can be taken, some main precautions, and maybe some tips for the manufacturers as well. Also the use of gaming systems as an attacking tool, using the Nintendo DS and the Wii as well. Alright, malware on the gaming consoles. There are two different types of malware that were identified by ON. Mainly speaking of the Wii, of course, as I said earlier, an application or game, and usually the maker of the application / game has a lot of working features that the user wants to have, but actually the application has a thread running in the background that is malicious. The other one that ON discussed was jailbreaking, which is essentially a bypassing tool that eventually causes some havoc on your machine. And some of the malware on the smartphones. These obviously aren't all of them, but the main exploits that were public. There's a worm targeting jailbroken iPhones using a default password, malware for Windows and BlackBerry devices, Trojan Windows mobile games, Toaster rootkit, and an Android rootkit as well. Using a game console as an attacking tool. The more years that go by, the more gaming consoles are becoming more like computers, it seems. Most gaming devices have high quality CPUs and networking devices, and it seems the more and more they evolve, the better they're getting. On actually makes a pretty good point about bringing a console into an office or a workplace, because it seems a little less obvious to bring that in than a laptop being like suspicious wise. Most people don't see a gaming console as a hacking device. And this is actually a picture of the attacking scenario. The attacker connects to the internal internet with the gaming console, and opposes any attacks that are possible on the network. Pretty simple. The Nintendo DS demos. ON went through on the first demo, and they were trying to use a homemade application that was a spin-off of Metasploit. They actually called it MetaDsploit because it was on the Nintendo DS. Trying to connect to the wireless, and unfortunately the demo wasn't able to be completed. But the second demo was recorded previously, so they were using two computers that are on an internal network that the NDS also connected to. This one was successful. ON actually sends a bunch of ARP packets to Computer 1, and Computer 1 actually thinks that the NDS is a gateway, which makes the Computer 1 pass all of its packets through the NDS, where the NDS can modify the packets and inject a frame code that will load a malicious page, that can be cited, and it can be decided by the author homemade application, basically meaning that you can make it do whatever you want according to what you code into the application. Malware on a bigger gaming console. So he first did it on the Nintendo DS. He's going to move up into a bigger console, so a little bit more capabilities. They were looking through a lot of different consoles, trying to decide which one would be the best to further the research, see what other malware is being exposed. And this chart actually shows the amount of piracy or torrents in the gaming world. And as you can see, Wii is actually second highest among gaming consoles, closely following the PSP, which made the Wii a pretty good choice. But the Wii also made a pretty good candidate because On was giving a great example of when he went and visited bigger companies, and he would go into the bigger companies and they were giving him a tour or whichever of the facilities, and in about 4 or 5 of the break rooms that he went through, they had Wiis to sort of boost company morale, was what his quote was, saying that the actual why it was actually there in the break rooms. Some of the games on the Wii, now to get the whole concept of how the malware gets onto the Wii, we're gonna go through some of the stuff of what the games consist of. Basically, executables are just files with a .dol extension. The sequence of the processing sequence for the games goes from the system menu to the app loader and then into the .dol. Most of the games, the .dol file contains all the necessities for the game to run. So basically, On was saying that we just are trying to get to the .dol file and modify that in a way to have them download that. Next is like the custom code on the Wii, sort of getting into how we're going to put the code inside of the .dol file. Merging 2 .dol files, updating header info, inject the code that transfers execution to the .dol, and fix the binary. And then how it is injected. This is a little bit more in depth, basically, of the previous. First, statically compile all the library code. Fix the image space to some place in the game memory that is not occupied. Number 3, attach the homemade app to the game at the executable. 4, fix the header in the game to the .dol file to reflect the changes that you've already made. Entry point changes to the the entry point changes from the entry point of the game to the new app, and then runs the app, and then basically you use all these steps and pack them into a .iso file and distribute that through the torrents or however you'd like, and have people download that, and then it becomes malicious on their system. Next is the Wii demo. This demo is done almost exactly the way that Nintendo DS was done earlier, but this is a little bit more elaborate because of the bigger system, and the hacker has a little bit more control of the compromised system once it's done. So the situation: the Wii is connected to the same network as computer 1, and they're plugged into an external hard drive to play a game that they downloaded off the internet. So the Wii runs the malicious game. The attacker attacks the host from the known vulnerabilities and then installs backdoors on the host system. So it's that easy. And then use your backdoors to however you please. And next are the demo steps, which is how we did it. You extract all the files from the .iso file. He used a tool. His favorite was the WIT. I thought that was actually pretty cool because it seemed like it was very relative to the entire class. Find the main .dol file, copy in the injector director. Copy it into the injector director, sorry. Using the injector, he goes through and issues a command that depends on 3 addresses to know where the malicious code actually has to go. And before this, he actually showed a huge line, an entire program that he had written in assembly that would go through and actually go into the .dol file. This results in getting the .dol file and injected with the malicious code from the homemade app, and then you pack it into an image file. Once you have the image file pack, this is a .iso file, which will then be downloaded by other users from torrents and such, just as I previously said. And that is it.